What's up, everyone? I got a text from a friend of mine who comes up for privates from San Antonio. Good guy. He's been training for a while now. He's either a purple or a brown belt. And anyway, he was just letting me know that he had gone over the website and read the article that I had written a while back called Learning Jiu-Jitsu in Order. And that's one of the things that at Kama Jiu-Jitsu we feel is so important, because when we learned Jiu-Jitsu, it was more of a random type thing. Well, I take it back. Elio Gracie, Rickson Gracie, Helson Gracie, they all ran with a curriculum. It was, if I remember right, it was a 36 lesson curriculum from white to blue. So I took privates from Helson when I started. In addition to his 3 times a week group classes, I took a private a week. And what he would do is he would go over that 36 lesson curriculum. Rickson also does it as well, and then gave it to Dave, the concept and the whole structure of it. And the way it was structured was that you had a self-defense, 1 or 2 self-defense concepts that you would do, followed by some grappling concepts, and then you do that. They give a little bit of everything over 36 lessons, and once the 36 lessons were done, then theoretically speaking, if you had a great command of it, then you'd be given your blue belt. What I found was that when I learned, the very first thing that I learned was how to do a choke and Americana shoulder lock from the mount. The very first day I went into jiu-jitsu. And I remember, and how to do the cross collar choke from the mount. And I thought that was the most awesome things. Those things were the most awesome thing. And because never in my life did I ever dream I'd be choking somebody or putting somebody, or intentionally putting somebody at a potential place to break their arm off. I was as a kid, I thought that was pretty cool. But what I've realized was that I didn't get to use those particular moves for months, because I could never get to being able to mount on somebody, because I just wasn't good enough. I would train with them, and they would always be mounted on me. So what I realized, and Dave and I put the Kama Jiu-Jitsu curriculum together, was we took the same things that Rickson taught, and we just simply reordered them, and we put them in a certain order that we felt would be better, because it would be more pertinent things that you would need to learn first. Not that anything is not pertinent. Everything is pertinent, but there are certain things that you need to learn first. So, as an example, when you're in school and you're learning how to read, they don't go and drop a novel right on your desk and say, "Hey, read this." No, you start off by learning letters, and then words, and then phrases, sentences, paragraphs. You read some short stories, and then you get to books, and then you get to more complicated books, and then you get to novels, and that's really how the whole impetus of the Kama Jiu-Jitsu curriculum and our whole teaching methodology was created. It was because we had to take everything we'd learned from Rickson Gracie and order it in a little different way that we thought was a little more, easier to learn, a little more bite-sized pieces, perhaps. I mean, you can call it anything you want, but the thing is that we set up an order to learn things. So you don't learn mount submissions one day, guard defense another day, cross-side escape another day, and shoulder locks another day. The thinking is that you're going to learn everything. But with us, it's a little different. We take those same things and we just put them in a specific order. And then once we teach you in that way, then it's more of a step-by-step thing. Because our opinion is that there is an order to what you need to do in jiu-jitsu. And that, I remember reading a piece that I think it was Roy Harris had written once. I can't remember, I think it was Roy Harris, and he'd written how he flow charted everything, and the image that I have of him is that of his things is that you start at point one, where if you imagine a trunk of a tree, and then from there you crawl up the trunk, and what happens is you have the branches, and you then go off. So you're heading toward submitting your opponent, I guess. And what happens is you come to a crossroads, at which point your opponent will either do one thing, which takes you off of one branch, or another thing, which takes you off to another branch. And then once you're traveling on that branch, I mean, let's say you're passing his guard, then your opponent can do X, Y, or Z, and then that's where you have your choices, and he flow charts in that way. It's for some people that's a good way to learn, because they're of the engineering type mind. I had an instructor once who basically was like a walking encyclopedia. You could throw anything at him, and he would be able to tell you how to do it and why it was important, all that kind of good stuff. Whereas with me, I'm a little more simple-minded, and I realized that I needed to learn stuff in a different way. So it wasn't really, I knew a lot of stuff from my white to brown belt years, but it wasn't really tied together until I started training with Professor Dave, and he kind of put everything in a way that I could process it. And from there, we were able to kind of put together what we call the Kama Jiu-Jitsu methodology and curriculum. So think about it. It's and the way we order it could be different from the way somebody else orders it. So think about it in your case. Has jiu-jitsu been kind of random for you, where you know a lot of stuff, but for some reason nothing seems to have priority in any given situation? And all we've done was just simply prioritized it. For every position, you need to be thinking about this. When you're in another position, you don't think about that anymore. You think about this instead. And it's all taught to our students in a particular order, so that once they reach blue belt, they all know the same things. Too many times I've seen blue belts who've been training for the same amount of time know different things. They should know the same things, right? Just like everybody going to first grade should know the same thing. Same with second grade, third grade, fourth grade. Somebody who's going into second grade shouldn't be learning stuff that's going on in 7th or 8th grade, right? At the same time, somebody who's in 7th or 8th grade should already have a command of what they learned in 1st and 2nd grade. So that's really it. And if you have any opinions on it, I'd love to hear them. In the meantime, have a great time training. We'll see you soon. Bye.